Hello and welcome back to the podcast that's doing things a bit differently by providing an independent voice amidst all the noise to give you the inside track on what makes the business of elite sport tick. This is Sports Structured. What sets us apart is the cutting-edge research that's been carried out by Leonard Curtis, providing validated sets of financial data plus professional commentary for major sports all in one place. Basically, it's all the facts and figures you need to know from the people who know what they're talking about, and backed by Leonard Curtis, who have more than 30 years of expertise in recovery and turning businesses around. Leonard Curtis were the first ever company to profile cricket in this country with their 2025 report, and now they've gone bigger and better with the 2026 edition. Alongside me to pick through the headlines and market-leading data, here in the UCFB broadcast studios in the heart of Media City, are two former England captains and the man who's led the latest research. First off is a man who was born just down the road, who went on to captain both Yorkshire and England, hitting 18 international centuries in a career that amassed 82 tests and 86 ODIs. He led England to the Ashes in 2025 and is responsible for the foreword to the latest Leonard Curtis report. Lovely to have Michael Vaughan, OBE, with us. Alongside Michael is another former England skipper who also won the World Cup and was awarded for an MBE for his services to the sport and the leading role he's played in the growth of disability cricket. It's great to have Iain Nairn back with us. Iain also heads up Leonard Curtis's North East team. And finally, one of our regulars and the man who brings the data and research to life. It's an honour to have him with us again. He's the Dean of UCFB, he's not an OBE, and a leading academic when it comes to sports business, Professor Rob Wilson. So that's our small but perfectly formed team of big hitters. Time for the bouncers to start without a hint of spin. This is the Sports Structured podcast with Leonard Curtis. Michael, it's lovely to have you here. Welcome to our lovely studios here at UCFB. Iain, welcome back. Rob, lovely to see you. Firstly, the report, 2026, I said bigger and better. Give us some of the headlines there, because it seems that the haves are out dancing the have-nots.
Yeah, I guess the big finding is that financially it's what we saw last year. So you've got your Surreys that are topping the table. They're, 2.5 times the performance index score of Leicestershire, who's sitting at the bottom. Still a significant amount of debt, not really a huge amount of revenue growth across the game. And you said bigger and better. We've added some new stuff this year. So we've got England Player Pathway Performance Index. So we're looking at where the English talent is basically nurtured and developed before they go into the test team or into one of the other formats. And then we've also added digital footprint. So who in the first class game is really generating digital activity, because we know in the modern world that digital activity tends to convert to pounds, shillings and pence, ticket sales, better sponsors, better broadcast, and that type of thing. The fascinating finding with that, just while I'm on it, James, is that Surrey have got 228,000 followers, I think, on Instagram. That's the sum total of the bottom 6 teams in that same index. So you have these powerhouses in English county cricket now that are hugely dominant both on the wicket but also on the balance sheet as well.
The top 6 have all the big revenues, they have all the big wages, they also have all the big debts. Is the whole thing kind of sustainable together? How does that work?
Yeah, so look, the ECB, Iain mentioned it, the ECB provides merit payments to clubs through their TV broadcast deal, which is linked to the England team. That ECB grant as a proportion of revenue in those top teams, like Surrey, for instance, about 6, 7, 8%. When you look down at the bottom end of the table, you go to somewhere like Northants or Leicestershire, that can be upwards of 65, 70, 75%. So depending on the situation you're in, will depend on how much money you're being gifted by your central grant and how much money you're earning yourself as a going concern. That's problematic, I think, for the game at large, because we really want to see organisations generating their own revenues. The ECB system actually is really nice and neat, if you like, for those non-test match venues, the non-100 franchises and so on. And then you mentioned the word debt there. I don't tend to worry too much about debt if it's repayable. It's what we always would teach students at UCFB, actually. Don't worry about debt. As long as you can pay your debts as they fall due, you're pretty okay. It's when you can't pay those debts as they fall due that's a problem. So that then takes us into, well, who owns the ground? Are you able to leverage your own assets? The top 6 clubs generate about, or own, if you like, about 81% of the debt that is spread across first class county cricket. So that's not problematic for me in principle, because those teams are then leveraging their assets to borrow that money. But ultimately, that's allowing them to grow even further. So take a Middlesex, for instance, play at Lords, but don't own the ground, don't benefit from the associated expenditure you can generate from that asset. So are going to be resigned to not being able to grow certainly at the same rate of Surrey or Warwickshire or Lancashire.
Michael, what do your instincts tell you about the state of county cricket? I asked the guys a couple of podcasts ago to rank it between 0 and 10. 0 is the dying man, 10 is Superman. Where's county cricket?
Well, I think it's always been the same kind of debate that county cricket is a bit of a struggle. But I do look at particularly the digital aspects of YouTube and the way that county cricket can promote itself via YouTube and potentially create a little bit of revenue from that exposure, eyeballs on the game. There are some counties that are run brilliantly. There are some kind of wonderful stories around the county game. Clearly, the Test match venues are head and shoulders because of what they've got and what they get in terms of revenue from international gains, but there's clearly still an issue with a few at the bottom that are in the same position that they've been for quite a long period of time. So it's how does the game help the likes of Leicester's and Gloucester's and Derby, if you like. I know Derby have done quite well in times because they've built a few a hotel or two around the ground, and I guess I look at a lot of the county venues. I go around and obviously watch a bit now, and I do see a want and a real kind of drive to make sure that these grounds and clubs become more sustainable. There's some wonderful models in cricket that have been. I mean, Surrey are the market leaders. You could argue that Surrey are very fortunate because of the position of the venue, but it's all about maximising what you've got, and Surrey have maximised exactly what they have, which is prime real estate, and it's really an event space that has a bit of cricket on a few days per annum, but they've maximised every ounce of what they have at Surrey, and that's all you ask really. You look at Leicester and go, have you maximised every ounce of what you have at Grace Road, and would it be worth moving from Grace Road if you've not got the chance to maximise what you have there? They're the kind of conversations that I think all the game needs to have. So we are helping the Leicesters, we are helping Gloucesters to make sure that in 10, 15, 20 years' time, they're still in active business.
Would you say the noises coming out of Yorkshire are just worrying, or would you say that they make sense in terms of they've got their money back from selling the franchise clearly, but they're also talking about a 10-year plan to develop Headingley? Does all that kind of make sense?
Yeah, and I get completely where they want to try and get to. They hate the word privatisation, the members, because demutualising the members, it's not easy, but it needs to happen. For Yorkshire to be sustainable moving forward, and for that ground to be one of the best grounds in the country, for the training facilities to be up there with the best training facilities, and potentially a partnership with Wheatwood and the university to grow Yorkshire cricket. The only way that can happen, and the only way that Headingley can become an incredible venue, is by having investment, and the investment will only come if it's privatised. And that's not saying the members won't still have their say. I know enough from those that are running the club that they will always give the members the say in Yorkshire County Cricket Club, but to grow that ground and to grow the brand of Yorkshire cricket and to make sure that it's up there with what a modern sports club should look like, they need outside investment.
How difficult is it squaring that circle in? Because as Michael suggests, the members want their voice. They're looking at demutualisation at Yorkshire. They also at Middlesex as well. Is that just inevitable?
Yeah, I think it's about understanding what your business is. What's your reason for being? So you might look at the teams down at the lower end of the table and say, are you really trying to win a league here? Because actually the financial reward of winning the league is negligible. So you're actually there as a feeder to either bigger counties or up to England, and for growing the game. Does that actually need you to be hugely profitable? It might just need you to be reach and break even every year with your support, knowing that your main source of revenue is from the ECB and from the central funding. And I think that going on to the membership point, if members don't want to see Yorkshire succeed, that might be their right, but ultimately the game in England needs Yorkshire to be succeeding when Yorkshire is strong, England is strong, and that that will change the game across the country.
But you hinted that kind of concern and worry that I think 7 of the counties rely on ECB handouts.
But that's the way our game's funded, isn't it? The image rights come in centrally, the TV money that is then divided up based on, to a degree, performance. You've got to hit the ECB parameters to get your money, and it's a good system that does hopefully see clubs collaborating as well. It was something that we mentioned last year, that collaboration and sharing of ideas. To really see the strong clubs passing on their bit of knowledge to the clubs that need some support.
Do you get that kind of knowledge exchange in cricket? Because you don't get it in football. Is there more willingness to kind of share ideas, share good practice?
I think so. I mean, I've not been involved at board level, so I'm pretty sure cricket is pretty good at passing on information and trying to create revenue streams away from the cricket. The smaller clubs are always going to be dependent on the ECB handout. That's the nature of the beast. But can we help them just provide themselves with a few more revenue streams? I'll talk. Somerset, where my lad plays, that they have. Number one, again, they've got. It's a good position that the ground's in. It's right in the town centre, and I'm not degrading what happens in Taunton, but there's not a lot there. So cricket is a prime kind of source of socialising for a lot of the community. So it's in a great position, but it's away from the cricket that I see that they have so many things that activate the ground. So you'll go down there on a Monday and there'll be something happening at the ground. So I think the CEO down there is doing a great job, and a lot of these smaller clubs. I'm not saying that Somerset is the benchmark, but with their pathway program, they seem to be doing it right. With their membership, they seem to be activating that quite nicely. They seem to operate, the odd concert or two down at the ground to bring in a little bit more revenue. And I'm sure other clubs are trying, but I think they're probably the market leader for the smaller clubs to try and follow. But I keep going back to Surrey. It's great because of where it's at, and I think Somerset, that they do have a kind of a leg up because it's right in the heart of Taunton.
When you're looking for your son to develop as a cricketer, though, are you also anxious that he doesn't play too much cricket? Because he's playing a lot more than you maybe did when you were 18 or 19, isn't he?
Should play every day. It's his job, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you learn more from playing than you do development.
Look, when you're that age, he's only 20. Crikey, you're not going to learn from sitting on a bench. I'm not old school to suggest that you get better at playing cricket if you play. I mean, clearly you've got to look after your bodies, and you need mental breathers because it's not an easy game. And if you're thinking about cricket 24/7, it can drive you bonkers, can't it? It's just one of those sports that it can get you. So yeah, of course you need time out, but I'm a big believer that young players get on playing cricket as much as they can.
Rob, was this set of figures frustrating in the sense you want to get to next year's figures and find out where the meat and drink is when it comes to the 100 and how the money's being spent?
Yeah, that's always the case, isn't it? Because we're always looking back 12 months, what has happened, and we're sort of picking up bits of information about what's going on currently so we can really start building the jigsaw. So fast forward 12 months, the 100 money is going to come on stream a lot more quickly. We'll start to see the impact and how that accelerates the gap. I want to go back to a question you asked Michael about the kind of collaboration within the game. Certainly those, in inverted commas, smaller counties are talking to each other. They are seeing that they can't control the revenues that are being offered by those 100 franchises. They can't do a lot about being a test match venue because their infrastructure is simply not sufficient to deliver that. So they're talking about how can we be stronger collectively that will then promote cricket for our counties. How can we activate the ground? How can we bring concerts in? How can we collaborate with another sporting entity that might be in and around our venue? We were talking on the rugby podcast, weren't we, with Mark Evans about how internal competition within a geographical area can really stifle the development. And if you're a rugby team playing in the northwest of England, you're going to really struggle to bring fans through the gate because they've got so many other options to look at. Take Somerset and Taunton. There isn't a huge amount of other sporting pursuits.
You're being more polite.
So there's an opportunity there to really activate and leverage that community. Couple that with the digital side of things, which I think is really starting to come on stream for these counties now. And that's how you start to generate those uplifts in revenue that on a percentage basis might be, 50, 60, 70% uplift because you're starting from a very, very small base. But will make a material difference to the investment that can go into that county that can then improve their player development systems, their pathways, their accessibility with local schools to spot that next talent and really graduate players up into the England setup, because ultimately that's how cricket is set up and structured. The club game, the county game, genuinely is built to feed a national setup, and that's very different to what we see in sport like football.
But I also there's some great stories about the Leicester counties. If I can call them that, you look at Leicestershire, what they did last year to get promoted into the first division, an incredible achievement. And what was that built on? It was built on really good coaching. It was built on signing players that had a point to prove. And you add into that one or two star quality players. Ray and Hamid had a fantastic season. So there's one story from a club which was saying is at the bottom of the pyramid, has managed to do some good stuff in the cricket. You look at Northampton. You put in a great coach like Darren Lehman, look what he's doing with Northampton. So Glamorgan, Richard Dawson goes in as a coach. So I do think these smaller clubs, if you get the right structure in place, there are a lot of cricketers out there. And that's not just in the UK, but globally with the overseas signings. If you're really smart and you grab one or two players that have got a point to prove from many of the bigger counties, you look at Surrey's squad, it's got 6 or 7 every week going, how are they not playing cricket? They'd be getting in most other teams. There are a lot of players out there that if you've got a smart operating cricket department should be able to grab some of these players. And there's a loan market as well. So you can be very competitive on the pitch, even though you probably haven't got the budget. You can be smart in your trades, you can be smart in your signings, you be clever with your overseas, you get them well coached, and you can really compete in this county game.
What was your gut response to 520 million? Was it thank goodness, or was it this we've got to be careful with this?
No, great. Absolutely the game needs that, but then it's right, okay, how are we going to spend it? And making sure that, it's, I don't see this opportunity coming again for cricket. So it's really wise that, the powers that be and the brains, and I believe that's the model. A county has to provide a sustainable model to allow the ECB to draw them down that cash, which is really good. That's great. But it has to be spent wisely to protect the game for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. This is cricket's moment. It's a great opportunity, but as we've seen in other sports, money's one thing, it's how you spend it, which is the most important.
Yeah, I think 4 of the counties already revealed they've paid off their debt, and I think Somerset one of them. The balance sheet's going to look very different this time next year, isn't it?
Yeah, but paying down debt is a really good thing to do when you are struggling for cash. And certainly, I know some of the big counties with a bit more debt on their balance sheet would like to be able to draw down the money from the 100 to deal with that. It can impact on cash flow. You see quite a lot of the companies running short at the end of the financial year for sure, waiting for the next bit of England money to come in. But it's that sustainability and viability of the business that's there. There's no point in Glamorgan going off and running up another £1 million worth of debt and then go, can we have some more please to the ECB? You need to make sure that underlying structure is safe and sound. But certainly, if you talk to some of the chief execs and ask them, would getting rid of your debt payments make you a better, stronger financial club? The answer comes back wholeheartedly yes. And for some of the companies, it's way more important that they get to do that than build a hotel. That's just not part of what they're going to do.
So you've got a nice hotel coming at Durham, haven't you?
Just about, yeah.
It's a bit posh for that area, isn't it?
Well, no, Chesley Street's quite
It's like Ben Stokes.
Yeah.
Is it Ben Stokes' hotel?
Well, it's
Rafa's going to pay his wages.
Yeah, it's somewhere for the Aussies to stay because they won't stay in Lumley Castle.
Oh, yeah, he goes to get with a ghost, yeah.
You got one of the lines of the year out of the man who runs the IPL in terms of what he thinks the 100's going to be. Lalit Modi said he thinks it's going to be dead in 3 years.
I don't quite agree with that.
I mean, he's got an axe to grind and he's driving.
I think where he'll probably be proven correct, it might not be 100 ball, it'll be T20 cricket. So he'll come back and say, well, I told you. I think his and I love Lalit because I love visionaries. I like people that are willing to do something that's just a little bit different, but then realise that you've got to make it work.
It was a great line.
Yeah, it was. I think the 100 will turn into a T20 tournament probably by the end of the next TV deal. we'll have to wait and see. I can see in the future 2 more teams being added to the 100 as well. I can see that's going to be coming quite soon, just to bring in again a huge amount of revenue to the game. That's probably the next bit of big cash that could come into the ECB. Whether that's the next round or we'll wait a few more years, we'll wait and see. But the one thing that I hope doesn't happen, the IPL started at a time when the window was, it's never been short, but it was shorter than it is now, and it keeps growing and growing, and I believe there's going to be 2 more teams added to the IPL, which will grow the tournament even more. They're on about starting it in March, finishing at the end of May. That's 3 months of our calendar to the IPL. The one thing I hope doesn't happen here is that window grows. We've set on it. It's at the heart of our summer. I'm happy for it to be there. But as long as it stays that window, I don't want it to be another 2 weeks added and another 3 weeks. And by 2033, we've got this 100 T20 franchise league for 2.5 months of our summer. I don't think that'd be right.
Does that become almost a hybrid blast then? Does the whole thing become a...
Yeah, I mean, look,
I know it's crystal ball games.
Cricket is a great sport because it feeds so many different personalities a love. And many love 4-day cricket, 5-day cricket. Many love 50 over cricket. We don't have too much of that. We have it during the 100. And many are new to the game. That the aspects of the growth in the women's game through the 100 has been massive. It's been one of the successes of our game for many, many years. And we've got to make sure that we're feeding our fans with not just one product. And if that's just white ball cricket, I think we'll lose a lot of people to the game. So we've got to make sure that we're feeding them with everything. And I think there's enough time in our calendar. I've always said that I wish county cricket started overseas in March. Then we can have a little bit more of a period of dare I say, a little bit of time in between games for the county games, and you give all county players the chance to play 2 4-day games in March away from home, and you could go to Zimbabwe, South Africa. I'm sure India would host a couple of games, the Caribbean, many other, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, wherever you want to take. But to give all our players the chance to play overseas in 4-day cricket, I believe would give English cricket more of a pool of players to choose from when you start travelling overseas. So I would always start county cricket away from home.
Rob, what do your instincts tell you about the broadcast deal next 2028? I mean, it's 1.1 billion plus your international rights. The 100 franchise people will want a return on their investment. Are they going to get it through broadcast rights?
I think we'll see an increase, might be a marginal increase and not significant. I very much agree with what Michael's saying about how the annual calendar will fit together, and how we might see a development of the 100 into a T20 format, and then you have competitions across the globe, don't you? Some players will be able to move between IPL, UK, Big Blast, and so on and so forth. That will become much more broadcastable. That's not a word, but you know what I mean. And that is when the growth will really start to get driven, I think. They are effectively franchises, so there is an opportunity to add franchises at some point. It'd be really interesting to see if some of those smaller counties are able to capture one of those franchises. That will require outside investment in order to achieve it. Temporary stands, to make the grounds a little bit bigger so they can host that. And that will then incrementally grow the competition out. I think it's really exciting for English cricket that this competition format has started. I think it was relatively overvalued, if I'm super critical, but the reality is something's worth what someone's prepared to pay for it. So the 520 million is very helpful. We haven't mentioned Sussex. We talked about Gloucestershire. We mentioned Glamorgan. Those counties have been able to pay down some of their debt, some of their losses, and are able to reset their systems, which is just, I think, very, very good for the game.
The one thing I that doesn't sit with me with the 100 is that the Southwest don't have a team, so there's a huge amount of cricket lovers down there, and also up in Durham. You look at the amount of cricketers that have been provided to the England setup through Durham over the last 20 years, and they're near the top of the tree because of that programme and the love of sport, never mind just cricket up in the northeast. So if you were going to add 2 extra teams to the 100 or this new T20 franchise tournament, I'd love to see the Southwest and Durham provided with the team.
But the analysis was really interesting about Sussex, because it almost said they had a plan in place, but that was kind of ditched because of COVID and left them in a spot. Is that accurate? Is that my reading?
I think there's a level of truth to that. I think COVID caught a lot of people out, didn't they? And if you were ready and you were set up for it, you probably came through. You talked to a lot of League One, League Two football clubs, and actually it was one of the best things that ever happened to them, because they were able to furlough staff. They got some funding in, but then you have losers as well. So absolutely some truth to that. But a massive reset required, isn't there, at Sussex?
And that's something that we really saw in business as well. There were a lot of bad businesses that stayed afloat through COVID because of furlough, because of the government loan schemes that were there, and there was a massive drop off in failures. It recapitalised a lot of businesses that had never actually had the capital in them to start with, and so you got to borrow 50 grand from the government on a 10-year loan at 2.5%. It was fantastic for some businesses, and that's sort of, you've seen things fly. As we came out of COVID, I think the same is true of some of the sports clubs as well. Through that.
I want to talk engagement and digital footprint just quickly before we finish. You're involved with the Barclays scheme, getting kids playing.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, is that is the only way to go about it, isn't it? In terms of catching an audience and the next generation of fans.
It's just making sure everyone's got an opportunity, and we saw a hole in the market a couple of years ago where, there's been many schools tournaments with the finals day at Lords, but fundamentally the independent schools are where all the power is. That's where all the kids kind of go when they're trying to be a cricketer. They get the best coaching, a lot of bursaries handed out to very promising young players, which is great. The independent sector have done great for the England cricket team, but to think that there wasn't a state school tournament dedicated with the finals day at Lords, I went to a state school in Sheffield, and it kind of hit home to me. I went, that shouldn't be not be able to happen. So Lords were great. They put on the tournament. We managed to get some money. We've had a great fundraiser last year, which future-proofs it for 4 more years. Barclays came involved, and we're a bit sceptical the first year how many teams we get. We're a bit worried about the girls' teams, thinking, are the girls playing in the state sector? Well, we got over 400 teams in year one in the girls' sector, which is amazing. We had over 1,100 teams across both, and finals days have happened. I went to the finals day at Cheshire last week. I'll be amazed if Altrincham Grammar School boys don't win it. I've seen a team now, they're a proper team, so I'll be amazed if I don't see them at Lords on September the 10th. And there's final days at Headingley for the north, there's final days down to south, at the likes of Wormsley, and I think Worcester have given us, Sussex have given us the ground as well. So September the 10th will be the first dedicated state school finals day at Lords, which is great for the game.
But the success of the England women's team is kind of doing the work for you in terms of evangelism, isn't it?
Yeah, we need them to win the World Cup. I think the game needs, I think English cricket needs a success story at the minute. We need a feel-good factor, and if the women can beat South Africa in a semi-final, if they can beat an Australian side that is world-class, you could argue that the Australian women's team is the best sporting team in the world over the course of the last 10 years. They've pretty much won everything, so you'd have to do something to beat them. But yeah, it's a success story, and then on the back of that, if we go into the 100, we know the success of the women's 100, it'll be massive for the game. So yeah, it's a good story.
Rob, I want to round off with one of the kind of groundbreaking things you've done with research in terms of digital footprint, and almost suggesting that players could give some of their social media earnings to the counties that have brought them through. I had a row with my wife last night, who's a lawyer, who said you can't do that. The players won't go for that. But I mean, it's a solution or a street, isn't it?
Yeah, look, the players and the lawyers won't agree to that. But the point of that whole digital footprint thing is you have individual players. I mentioned Surrey's digital footprint being bigger than the collection of the bottom of that league, if you like, the bottom 5 clubs. So the sum total of Surrey's digital footprint is bigger than the collective of the bottom 5. But you have individual players that have got bigger followings. I dare say Michael's got a bigger following than most of the first-class cricket counties in their own right. So I think the challenge to cricket is, how do you leverage the profile of those players to benefit the game and to benefit your county? Obviously those stories need to be positive, but there is a huge opportunity there to really lean into that fascination that the younger public, the sort of 16 to 24s, have with shorter form content on some of their social media platforms, the way you put together reels, how you might get an individual player to activate another brand, how that brand might work with the county, a front shirt sponsor that might want to use your your biggest brand, and your biggest brand might well be one of your players.
Would you go along with that, or would you be, if it was written into a contract that some of your social media earnings went back to the county that brought you through, or are we on dangerous ground there?
Yeah, I think it's dangerous territory, because
You'd agree with my wife because she thought it was.
No, every individual case would be different. So you get players that say yes, you get players that say no. So I do think there's a huge opportunity in the digital space. I've seen it myself recently. It's where people are consuming pretty much everything. Dare I say, who watches television anymore? I mean, it's just turned a full circle. I've always said this. I'd love English cricket to do a Drive to Survive documentary across the whole game. I just think cricket is such a great sport for storytelling. There's so much goes on in our game, whether it's a Saturday afternoon game, the tea's still being made by the same person that's been making them probably for 60 years. There's great stories across our grassroots game. There's great stories across the schools. There's great stories going through the county system, the minor county system, disability cricket, women's cricket. There'll be stories and characters that are out there that we should put on telly or digital, should I say, and get it out there, because Drive to Survive, I've never been a Formula One fan until I suddenly started watching Drive to Survive, and now I catch up on every Grand Prix because of what I saw on the television. I think we could engage a whole new audience if cricket was documented in a kind of similar show.
And that's where it's going. So, we've just seen Netflix, haven't we, acquire effectively podcasts that have got celebrities driving podcasts. I checked it yesterday and it was 4th on the top 10 most watched series on Netflix. Drive to Survive, you've got docuseries on Amazon Prime. Manchester United have just signed a big deal, haven't they, to get behind closed doors access. Cricket has got so many stories across all those formats.
We seem to be, maybe seeing them saying that need to start it. And they need to open up what they're about. Maybe it's probably the right time. We're all criticising them, so let us into.
Give them a right reply.
Let us in and show us what
show us
you're
the
about.
magic.
Yeah, because I think it'd be good for them, and I think it'd be good for the game generally. And I think the whole aspect of trying to get and engage a new audience, and I think that could be one way of doing it.
I wasn't sure what we're going to get from you this morning, whether it was going to be just common sense and pessimistic. You look optimistic about cricket, and it looks.
I love cricket.
No, I know you love it.
I love it. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been involved in cricket since '91, and these conversations that we're having now have been happening since '91. So cricket will survive. We're going to be fine. But we all sports. You're looking at football and all the football clubs from Premier League right down to non-league. They're all having the same conversations. Everyone's trying to find a model and a sustainable business to make sure that in 20, 30, 40 years' time, whether it's us three sat here, I doubt it, but cricket will be okay. But I think there's enough good people around the game now that are realising what's possible, and that's the exciting part for me in cricket. That we've got a great game. We've got so many different kind of legs to our game that we should all enjoy. And I think we've got a product that over the time, and I do think this T20 model, it's not my favourite format. Test match cricket, 4-day cricket's my favourite, but I do think T20 has provided us with a great opportunity to make sure that cricket is really looked after in the future.
Michael, thanks for coming in. Thanks for your time and honesty. Iain, lovely to see you. Rob, thanks for the facts and figures. And that's it for another episode of the Sports Structured podcast with Leonard Curtis. Hopefully you've seen we do things a little bit differently. Yes, there's informed conversation and debate, but it's backed up by cutting-edge research and data, plus recommendations aimed at growing longer-lasting and more sustainable sport for years to come.